So for example, we know that this model is showing us a whole. We know that this model is also showing us a whole, but it's also showing us 10 tenths because it's split up into 10 equal parts. And then we also have, I'm just going through my models here and trying to find them. We also have our hundreds, and I've lost my hundreds. So our hundreds look like this. And then of course we have our model of thousands, which look like this. Okay, so if I were to take my decimal models and put some for you on the board. So I'm going to keep that purple one there. Think about how much that is worth and how much is it worth now because I put two purple ones there. And then I'm going to put a red one here. So first thing I notice is I have two wholes. So I'm going to write that down as my value. I notice that this is part of a whole, which tells me that I'm going to use a decimal. I also see that it's in the tenths place because it's 10 equal parts. So I generally will draw a line for the model that I see. Since this is a tenth, I'm going to draw a line because that tells me that I'm going to need a number in the tenths place. And when I count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, I have 4 tenths. So this model is showing us 2 and 4 tenths. Now I'm going to take this tenth away and I'm going to put a hundredth there. And this is going to explain why I draw these lines. So again, I notice this is my hundredths place. So I'm going to have a place for my tenths and my hundredths. I have to show that I'm using hundredths. When I look at this model, I notice that I only have 1, 2, 3 hundredths. That means I'm going to put 3 in the hundredths place. But that leaves my tenths place blank. There's a couple of ways to think about it. This is an empty spot. So if I want to show that I need to hold that spot, what digit can I put there that means nothing? That means that there's no value. The other thing I could think about is, do I have any rows of 10 completely shaded in? A row of 10 would mean that I have one solid row shaded in, like I do on my tenths model. I don't. So I can put a 0 there to hold that spot. Now, just to show what I mean by saying I don't have a value of tenths in that model, what if I switch that model out and put this one here? So I'm going to erase my numbers from my previous answer, and I'm still working with hundredths because this model is a hundredth. The next thing I want to do is look at the value. Start with your tenths place. Do I have any rows of 10 shaded in? Remember, a row of 10 would look like one complete row shaded in. So for example, this has 2 complete rows of 10 shaded in, just like this model. See how they match up? So I have 1 row, 2 rows, which is the exact same as this model. So that means I have 2 tenths. And then how many of those hundredths do I have remaining? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would go in my hundredths place. Or I could think of it this way. This is 1 row of 10, plus 2 rows of 10 is 20, plus 6 additional squares gives me 26 hundredths. So this model shows 2 and 26 hundredths. All right, so now let's take a look at our thousandths. Remember, our thousandths are those teeny, teeny, tiny squares. All right, here we go. I'm going to let's change up our whole number. Let me change this whole thing. I'm going to take one of these away. So the first thing I want to do is write down the number of whole squares or models that I have. I have 1. Now I see that my next model is part of a whole, which means I need a decimal part. point. And I also noticed that my model is a model of thousands. So I have to have a digit in the tenths, hundredths, thousandths place. So the first thing I want to do is I want to look at my tenths place. And I want to ask myself, how many whole rows of 10 do I have? Whole rows. Think to yourself how many I have. All right, got it in your head? It matches this model. So that means I have 3 whole rows of tenths. Next, I want to look and see, do I have any hundredths shaded in? Remember, hundredths model looks like this. And if we line it up here, that tells me I have 3 hundredths. So I'm going to write a 3 in my hundredths place. The last thing I'm going to do is look at that thousandths place. All right, bear with me. I'm going to zoom down in. All right. See those teeny tiny little boxes? Remember that 100th square is made up of 10 thousandths. Half of that square is shaded in. So that would mean I have half of a thousandths, or half of 10, which means I have 5 thousandths. So all together, this model shows 1 and 335 thousandths, or 3 tens, 3 hundredths, and 5 thousandths. Okay, I'm going to give you 1 or 2 to try on your own. See if you can come up with the same answer as I do. Let me remove my models. Okay, so here we go. What is the value of that decimal model? I'm going to give you a moment to try to figure it out on your own. And then I'm going to go over the answer. Okay, first you want to think about what your whole number is. Notice that you have part of a whole, so that means your fraction. And think about how many places beyond the decimal you will have a digit for. Okay, so again, count your whole models. So I have 3 whole. I have part of a whole, so I need my decimal. My model is showing hundredths, so I know I need to have 2 digits beyond my decimal. I see that I have 2 rows of 10, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hundredths remaining, or 3 and 27 hundredths. All right, let's try another one. Remember, first record your whole models, then record your decimal. Look at the model to decide how many places your decimal will go, and then write it down. Okay? All right, here we go. I have 1 whole model. I know I have a decimal because that's part of the whole. This is a model of tenths, so I only need 1 digit beyond the decimal for my tenths place. And I notice almost all of my tenths but 1 are shaded in, so I have 9 tenths. This model shows 1 and 9 tenths. Try this one. Count your whole number, decimal point, how many place values do you need to put digits in, and what is the value of this model? Here we go. I have 2 wholes. I know I'm going to have part of a whole, a decimal. My model shows me hundredths, so I need 2 digits beyond my decimal. I count 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of complete rows of tenths, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hundredths to give me 2 and 46 hundredths. All right, you know that I'm going to challenge you on this one, right? Okay. Write down how many holes you have. It looks like we have part of a whole, so we need a decimal. How many places over will our decimal go? And what is the value of that model? You know I have to challenge you. All right, do you have any holes? Nope. So we have 0 holes. Do we have a model of a decimal? Yes. What is that model of? Is it of tenths? No. Is it of hundredths? No. Is it of thousandths? Yes. So our decimal is going to have 3 digits. When I look at my picture, I don't see any complete rows of 10. So 0 in my tenths. When I look at this model, I don't see any complete squares to show 100. So I have 0 for my hundredths. And when I look at what's shaded in, I noticed 5 are shaded in on the left and almost all on the right but 1, which means I have 9 thousandths. So this shows 9 thousandths. This should help you with today's work.